Hello everyone. Welcome to the Chicago Club travel show and entertainment show. I'm Dorothy Pacella and I'm your host for these shows, and we're delighted that you could join us. Did you know the Chicago Club is the largest club in the village with over 700 members? Did you know that we're over 40 years old? Did you know you don't have to be from Chicago to join the Chicago Club, even though I'm from Chicago? And did you know we're the friendly club? We really are. But there's a lot more to the Chicago Club than just travel. I know many of you enjoyed our shows every month, but there's a lot more to us than just travel, a lot more than a pretty face. We're having fun, and we absolutely do monthly events at Clubhouse 5. We have great musical entertainment acts that you would absolutely love. We have every now and then we add a comedian to make you laugh. So we're at Clubhouse 5 every month, the second Thursday at 7 p.m. And we welcome all, even non-members are welcome. And I'm sure you're going to enjoy our complimentary desserts, along with a GRF cash bar. But as many of you know, we travel. And the Chicago Club offers monthly day bus trips to all over Southern California. They're wildly popular, and we're quite famous for it. Now that we've piqued your interest, we have some coming attractions for all the events that we're going to be doing in Clubhouse 5. I think you're really going to like it. It's going to make you want to sing, it's going to make you want to laugh, and hopefully it will make you want to get on a bus. So sit back, get comfortable.
Bernie, your travel and event guide. My emails and our website shown below keep you informed of everything offered by the Chicago Club. This preview of coming attraction shows the highlights of our current entertainment and travel events.
Ooh, yeah. Do I give all I am to be now and forever your man? Do I take you to be without question the woman for me? Do I promise you I do? Do I promise you I do? I do. Da 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 da. Try and see things my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can't? We can work it out. We can work it out.
The Chicago Club is going on one of its trips. The bus just got here.
On October 1st, 1958, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, or NASA, would be founded. And just 2 months later, on December 3rd, 1958, JPL would be transferred from the Army to NASA. And why NASA continues to fork over billions of dollars to Caltech on an annual basis. Did you guys realize that Caltech played such a big role in NASA?
Welcome to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, NASA's lead center for robotic exploration of the solar system. The engineering design process is essential to understanding the science of Earth, our solar system, and the universe. Without it, we could not build instruments and spacecraft to bring science data, and by extension new discoveries, back to Earth. You'll see what those standards look like in action at JPL.
We are waiting at gate 3, and look who came by. Unfortunately, we can't get the horses and their riders on our bus, but I can't think of a better way to start a morning in Laguna Woods Village. Where do you go to find horses and riders coming right up to you while you're waiting at a bus stop for a trip? And they're absolutely wonderful. And if you've ever watched them, very seldomly do you see them on the trail here, coming past gate 3, and then you'll see them cross Aragon, because they've come from the stables, and there are trails throughout the village that they're able to ride. So this is a highlight out of all of our trips. We've never had our horses try and crash our trip. So it's very exciting, and there they go. Maybe they just want to ride alongside of the bus today down to Oceanside. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Chicago Club Travel Show. I'm Dorothy Picella, and I'm your host for today's show. It's July. It's a beautiful, warm morning, and we're at gate 3. And we're really excited about today because we're back on the road again. Now, today we're doing a California history tour. Now, I don't know about some of you, but history wasn't my favorite subject. I did it, but I went through it, but we did it because it was on the curriculum. But let me tell you, there's no history class like today's going to be, because we're on site really following the actual history of California. And we're so excited because, again, we have Bill Hoffman with us from Hoffy Tours. Our bus is full. We have everybody on the bus. Everybody showed up this morning. So now let's have Bill tell us what's actually in store for today.
Driver is Jerry. I've worked with him for many years. Wonderful driver, wonderful guy. This is Jerry. Say good morning, Jerry.
Good morning, Jerry. Good morning, everybody. Emergency exits. Every other window's an emergency exit. Not all the windows. Also 2 on the top. There are 2 fire extinguishers underneath the front seats. There's one here, and there's another one right there. Please watch your step, and let's have a wonderful trip. Thank you.
That was perfect. Okay, Jerry, you know where we're going. Mission San Luis Rey.
Oceanside.
Now, in case the cabin loses oxygen, an oxygen mask will come down from the top. Please put the mask on yourself before helping the child next to you. Okay, welcome everybody. This is our California history tour. We're going to learn a lot about California history. We're going to go to what I think is the most beautiful mission of the 21 missions. Mission San Luis Rey de Francia is the full name. It is so beautiful, it was declared a National Historic Landmark. There's only 26, we can go, Jerry, when you're ready.
Okay.
I just talk a lot.
All right.
If he waits for you to stop.
My wife knows that. So, by the way, my wife has a hearing aid, and if I'm too loud, just go like this. So right now, is it okay?
Is that what she does?
She does. That's what Maria does. So anyway, it is such a beautiful mission, and we're going to have a wonderful tour there of the mission, and then you'll have time to go to the gift shop, and then you're going to have time to go to the beautiful museum, and believe it or not, we're going to have lunch at a National Historic Landmark. We're going to eat just what the missionaries, the Franciscan missionaries ate. We're going to have squirrel burritos, coyote enchiladas. Well, isn't it cool though to eat lunch in a National Historic Landmark? So there you go. Yeah, we're not having that. And then we're going to go back up the coast and we're going to do the Dana Point walking tour. Dana Point has an amazing history for a small town. And I'm going to tell you the history. We're going to do a brief walk. Very famous people came to Dana Point, but I don't want to talk about them now. I want to talk about them later. Then you're going to be really tired, so it'll be time to drink wine. So it's kind of fun. We're going to drink wine in San Juan Capistrano. Yeah. We're going to drink wine at a nice place called Five Vines. There'll also be a cheese platter. We'll have Velveeta cheese.
Oh, you're terrible.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Do you know when you go to a Dodger or Angel game and you get the nachos, they put that horrible cheese on there?
Cheese whiz.
Yeah, cheese whiz. Yeah, we're having wine with cheese whiz. Just kidding. So we're going to have a delightful wine tasting. So, and by the way, you might have seen this mission because Carmen and Dorothy and I did the travel show, remember? We did the travel show with Mission San Luis Rey. And the tour guide, our tour guide is from Mexico City. And this is kind of a fun story. A person from Mexico City is called a chilanga. Can you say that? Chilanga.
Chilanga.
If it's a guy, it's a chilango.
Chilango.
Very good. But anyway, yeah, she's got a master's in fine art, so she knows her stuff. So you'll really, really enjoy her. Her name is Helena, and she's just been promoted to the museum director. So that part is going to be really fantastic. And you know that the Chicago Club tours are very educational. There are various quizzes along the way, and you can win prizes. The best prize is the famous Larry light. It's an LED light. There are now 72 of them in the village, the people who've won them.
But mine still needs new batteries.
Yes. The worst prize is a slotted spoon.
Hey, those were
Actually,
I won that.
yeah, I don't want to give away something that's garbage. This is pretty good.
It's a kitchen essential.
And then the second best prize is my trivia book. I wrote a trivia book during the pandemic called Not So Trivial Trivia Quizzes. And they airbrushed my face so I didn't look so ugly. Here I am on the back. I've already sold in 4 years, I've already sold 73 copies. It's really
Flying off the shelf.
59 of them were bought by people in the village.
How many
Okay.
did you give
And the rest
away?
by your
And
family.
I gave away 11. That means I only sold 8 to the general public. But if you do win it and you enjoy it, please put a review on Amazon. I have 6 reviews already. 4 are bad, 2 are good. I'm just kidding. So anyway, first of all, I'd like to introduce Carol Bennett. She is our trip coordinator. Carol? Carol is got grandchildren, don't you?
2.
She's got 2. She's super fun. She's going to tell us her favorite Chicago Club tour.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, I think one of my favorite tours was without Bill Humphrey.
Another bad review.
We've been planning all these trips. This trip has been planned for 2
Sure
years.
Yeah.
Oops, and then COVID hit. But one of my favorite trips was to go to the Adamson house
Oh yeah.
in Malibu.
Yeah.
That was just spectacular.
Yeah.
But Chicago Club always does great trips. Next month we will go to the Getty and Skirball. And the following month, by popular request, it's another trip to JPL.
Yes.
So stay tuned, sign up early. We always take people from the waiting list
Yeah.
if there are cancellations. So there are a few of you on this trip that benefited from being on the waiting list. So welcome everybody, glad you're here. Have a good time.
Thank you, Carol. Yeah, Jet Propulsion Laboratory built the Mars rover. You know, NASA has approximately 10 facilities throughout the United States. Jet Propulsion Laboratory builds non-manned robots that go into space. For example, they built the Mars rover that just landed on the Martian surface last year. They built Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 in the 70s, and that story is amazing. Both Voyagers are beyond the solar system now. They're in interstellar space, and they're still transmitting messages. Can you imagine that? They are light years from the Earth, and they're still doing their thing. And also the Getty tour is wonderful because the Getty Center is the #1 attraction in Los Angeles, by the way, according to TripAdvisor. But the cool thing is we're also going to the Skirball Cultural Center, and we're going to the famous exhibit called I'll Have What She's Having, Jewish delis in the United States. And we were able to book 2 tours. Yeah. Yeah, so that's going to be a fantastic tour. I'm sure that tour will fill. By the way, the JPL tour, I've already booked your lunch at Buca de Beppo. So you have a nice lunch in an air-conditioned room. We hope what happened 4 years ago doesn't happen. Should I tell the story? We're at Buca de Beppo, we're having a nice lunch. I look at my phone and said, security alert, Jet Propulsion Laboratory is closed. So we had to pivot to Descanso Gardens, which wasn't bad, it was beautiful, but it wasn't JPL. But I'm sure that won't happen, guys. Okay, so that's your introduction. We have a wonderful tour today, very educational. I want to introduce my partner, Dave Bratton-Kearns. Dave would like to say hello.
Hello, everybody. Also, just a little tack on to what Bill was talking about, JPL. If you are unable to go, one thing you might want to look into, which Bill and I did last week or week before last, they do Zoom introductions to JPL. Wanda was on it, and the guy who conducted it, Curtis, he was fantastic, and he kind of did an overview of JPL, took us a lot of different places. But what was really neat about it is he showed us their websites that are open to the public, and you can find out about all this really neat stuff that JPL is doing, about all their missions that they currently have going, and then, a lot of talk about the different rockets and satellites and things that they've set up. So that's really, really neat. Also, in keeping with Chicago Club tradition here and Hoffy Tours, we feed you. If this, I'm going to show of hands. How many of you are on a Hoffy tour today for the first time? Okay, most of you are veterans, so you know that we feed you, but we feed you, and you'll get lunch as well. But anyway, stay tuned.
Yeah, we figure if the tour's bad, at least you got fed. Yeah. So by the way, if you go to jpl.nasa.gov and go to the website, halfway down it says tours. Click tours, and there's a virtual tour. It takes you through the entire facility, which is really, really great. Okay, so Dave is going to pass out the pencils. Welcome to Mission San Luis Rey de Francia. It is a beautiful mission. I think it's the most beautiful of the 21 missions. It was the 18th of the 21 missions, and you can see this plaque right here. It's a registered National Historic Landmark. That's the highest honor a place can have in the United States. There's about 2,600 of them in the United States. They are designated because it possesses exceptional value in commemorating or illustrating the history of the United States. And only several of the 21 missions have this distinction. It's also, of course, a California landmark. Now, when we look at the facade of the mission, it is one of the largest facades. You can see as we look up top, it has a stepped gable above the church. That is a beautiful stepped gable. This was built in 1781, in the late 1700s. And it's one of the only California missions that has a cruciform plan inside, meaning the church is in the traditional long nave and the transept like a cross. And take a look at the beautiful cupola on top. It's an 8-sided cupola bell tower, which is one of the largest of the California missions. So here we are in Oceanside, and it's an absolutely gorgeous day. And the brickwork here in the balustrade, the little fence here, the brickwork was done by a Mexican architect, and it's absolutely beautiful. All right. Is Hither? Hey, it's a nice breeze right now. So I would like to introduce the museum director, Helena Hazelton. She was made the museum director a year and a half ago. She has a passion for the missions and a wonderful knowledge. And her wonderful sidekick is a wonderful guy, Ted. He will be taking half the group, and you're going to go in opposite directions. Because if you go together, it'll be a mess. Yes. And I just have one more announcement. The tour lasts approximately 50 minutes-ish.
Yeah, about an hour.
And then we're going to meet here, and you'll have a full 45 minutes to cruise wherever you want to go. You can go into the museum, which I recommend. You can go over to the cemetery. You can sit here, or I'm going to take a tour to the beautiful lavanderia where they did the washing and the kiln. And we'll also see the famous cochineal bug that you squish to make red dye. So I'll meet you here at 11:20-ish for that part of the tour. Okay, so take it away, guys.
So, Bill,
Yes.
what's being built over there?
Yeah, what is that building over there?
That building over there is a senior community. It's a project that has, well, the history goes back to about 20 years. There has been many plans to do a project in that side of the mission. That section right next to the lavanderia used to be pasture for horses and cows, and it's part of our land still. And we are leasing the land. Right now they're building. The sales office will open next month, and the plan to open the retirement community is scheduled right now for September 2023. Wow. Maybe they will do it based on how fast the construction is doing. I can tell that maybe they'll accomplish their goal of opening, and it will be just what we know so far, because we still don't have a lot of information to give to people. It will be part of the mission. There will be shuttle buses bringing people here for mass, for the museum, for the gift shop, and it is going to be a pretty fancy thing too.
Yeah, I'd like to point out, look at the little bell tower, very mission style, and see the rounded gable? That means mission revival. Look at the architect, maybe you required that.
Not just us.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Not just us. Remember, National Historical Landmark.
Yeah, that's right. Remember, you guys, and one more thing. Do you see the plaque right there? The plaque right there, right to the left of the church entrance. That's the National Historic Landmark plaque. That is a tour guide's, that's the most famous, that possesses exceptional value for the history of the United States. So we're going to divide in two groups. So let's, we need 25 here and 25 there. So let's go to...
Why would you think this is my favorite part of the mission? Let me tell you a little secret. I'm an art nerd. I like history, but I love art. I'm an art geek. That was my area of expertise. I'm actually an art historian, not just a historian. So, of course, the church is where the mission has to be. Favorite part of the mission. Not just what you see on the walls, but also the way this church was built. Just to give you an introduction, I'm pretty sure you are all aware of basic mission history, right? Missions in California, to other missions already, who built the missions. Do you know all of that, or do I need to make like a 2-minute recap? Okay, let's do a 2-minute recap. There are 21 missions in the late 1700s, early 1800s. The mission system was a very Spanish institution, and it was used to convert the native people here in California and other parts of the Americas into not just Christianity, but how the Spanish used to live. They taught them about religion, Catholicism, but at the same time, they introduced farming, ranching, they introduced new crops, new animals, and the idea is to change the economy, to just include the native population into the Spanish way of life, and especially Spanish economy, make them tax-paying serfs of the king, all of what comes with a territory, a big European power. 21 missions in California brought by the Franciscan friars. There were 4 orders, religious orders. Empire used to build missions. The Franciscans were one of them, and they were the ones who built all the missions in California. Now, these were built with 4 spaces in mind. They had to be functional. The first one was cemetery, church, and then a quadrangle. You need to have a holy ground when you can bury dead people. You need to have a chapel where you can pray. And you need to have a building that is used for housing and for just everyday activities, ranching, where to store goods, where to educate people, all of that. And every mission follows this same pattern. Now, Mission San Luis Rey was the 18th mission of those 21. Technically, the mission started in 1798, which is 14 years after Father Serra, the Franciscan who introduced the mission system in California, passed away. This is a late mission. And because it is a late mission, and because there were many mistakes from the previous missions that were avoided here, it became the largest and the most productive, which is why San Luis Rey was called the King of Missions. At some point, this mission administrated over almost 1 million acres of land, which is pretty much all what North County San Diego is today, and a little bit more. From the mountains, Mount Palomar, all the way to the ocean, and from Camp Pendleton all the way down to the San Dieguito River. So all of that area was controlled by Mission San Luis Rey. If you have the largest mission out of all of them, you need to show that you have the largest church as well. Let me tell you a secret, not a lot of people know this. When we say the mission was founded in 1798, they think that everything was built in that time. That's not the case. You need a few years to have this building, and back in the day it was even larger. The church started in this same place, but just a hut made out of wood and reeds and branches, very similar to a Native American dwelling or house. Based on records, Father Fermin Lasuen, who founded this mission and left 6 weeks after founding the mission, when he left, there were like 6,000 bricks already made. They had started construction when the area where the friars would live, which is where today is the museum, and they had built a church made out of reeds, branches, and wood. After a few years, they built a proper chapel, but then after the population started growing and the community started growing, Father Antonio Peiri, the Franciscan who administrated this mission, thought about building a more permanent church. Quotes, because that's how they called it. What do they mean with a permanent church? They mean a church that is properly built according to the rules that the Vatican established, which is a church with a transept. This section right here is the transept, the two open chapels that give us the idea that this is a cross-shaped layout. Proper church started in 1811, finished in 1815, which is technically the year the construction ended. About 16, 17 years to build the entire place. Now, one of my favorite parts about the way this church, ways in which they arranged issues that they had back in the day. Earthquakes, for example. The earthquake in 1812 destroyed the church in San Juan Capistrano, which you might be very familiar with. The story, the tragedy, and why it was not rebuilt. It was, other than that church, this was the largest one. But when the earthquake happened, this church was not finished yet. So the architect and Father Perry just changed a few things that they had thought about the original layout of the mission. Instead of building 2 bell towers, they left it at 1, which is the one that they had built. What happened in San Juan Capistrano, the bell tower fell into the nave of the church. So it was logical for them to avoid having 2 hazards, so they removed 1. They only left the one they had built. The other thing that changed is the width of the walls. They came up with a solution that would give more stability to a high wall by making the wall wide at the bottom, 9 feet, and then narrow as it goes up. It narrows to almost 6 feet. So it's like a pyramid. I love telling this to people because they miss it. If you see, our walls are not straight. If you look at the door, if you look behind you, you can notice that the walls are not straight. The pillars are not. Yeah. Goes to 6 feet. You can see it on the windows. That's a very interesting thing. My other favorite part about how this mission was built is how, if you have been to European, particularly Spanish churches, they use materials like marble or even gold to decorate. alone churches in Europe. Maybe if they're lucky, they have traveled to San Juan Capistrano or San Diego, and that's it. But they still break like tiles and paint them on walls. These patterns are original, by the way. Yep, this is from the original church built 200 years ago. My favorite one. Look at the arches right next to the altar. How they're trying to copy the textures of things like marble. The roof is a reconstruction done when the mission was reoccupied in the early 1900s, but it is technically and then the art that we have here, which is also pretty special in many ways. There are one series and one statue, one series of paintings that are original to the mission. The statue of King Louis IX of France, our namesake, which was a gift from the King of Spain, and it came to the mission in 1804. And the other is the Stations of the Cross. When the mission was abandoned in the 1940s, a local woman who was the owner of a nearby ranch, Rancho Guajome, her name is Isadora Bandini, took the paintings to in her private chapel. The mission, late 1890s, she brought them back. So they're here. Those are the two pieces of art that are technically original to the mission. When the mission was abandoned, everyone came and stole something. There are reports how American soldiers were rolling our documents to make cigarettes in the 1840s, sorry. Most of the artwork that we have here today came later. This mission, just to give you a brief story, established by the Spanish, 1798, and it started growing. But then in 1821, California becomes part of Mexico, and Mexico decides to get rid of the mission system at all. So by 1830, they were starting to secularize mission lands, to divide them and sell them away for political favors, as grants for Native Americans. It was a little bit complicated. The missions were partitioned, given away. The friars left. In this case, Father Perry, who had been for 32 years, he decided to go back to Spain in the early 1830s. He came here when he was 29 years old. And he basically built everything from the ground up with the help of a lot of Native American craftsmanship. By 1846, one of the last priests who guarded the mission, Father Salvidea, passed away. He's actually buried in this side of the altar. And the mission was abandoned. It was abandoned for over 50 years, and then granted back to the Catholic Church, granted back to the Franciscan community, and it was a group of 12 friars from Mexico that came here, saw the ruins in the early 1890s. They decided to establish a school here and restore everything, which is why today we're still an active mission. We're the rare case of a mission that still has Franciscan friars. And when the Franciscans came back and started restoring everything, a lot of the artwork was donated too, including everything that originally belonged to San Diego, both the mission and the Presidio Church. That's a very interesting story, and there are books that tell that try to compile everything, all the art pieces that used to belong to San Diego that are now here, including the Final Judgment right here. That painting, according to scholars who has examined the painting in the early 2000s when it was restored, it might have been handpicked by Seraph himself in Mexico City. These type of paintings are very useful for educational purposes. That was mostly the goal of of colonial artwork in Mexico, Peru, which were the big art centers back in the Spanish colonial days. You can tell it's used for education, that people can read, not in Latin, but in Spanish. Narration of the Final Judgment according to the Holy Scripture. And it starts listing verses and chapters. So you can understand everything going on in that scene. Now, why Mission San Jose ended up with the artwork that used to belong to that story? When both San Diego Church, Mission Church, and the Presidio were abandoned, treasures to a little chapel called the Immaculate Conception Chapel. We know it today as the Adobe Chapel in Old Town. It was there for a few years. There are records, there are listings, there are drawings, there are photographs of a lot of the artwork there, little chapel in Old Town. But in the 1920s, there was a plan to bulldoze that small. The priests and the city of San Diego, who now own all that land, which we call today Old San Diego, decided to donate it to the Church of San Luis Rey, to the Friars Hugh, because it was an active church. And that's how we ended up with this statue with a Saint Didacus. That might have been the original Saint Diego. Just like we have our namesake at the top of the altar, this might have been at the top of the church in San Diego. And we ended up also with a statue that is quite famous, which is the Immaculate Conception, that is technically the patron in San Diego. We can see it in the side chapel while we move to the cemetery, if you want to come with me. His name was Fray Juan de Zumárraga, a Franciscan, did not believe Juan Diego. And a lady appeared to an Indian that has just been, that is to Christianism, like nobody believed him. So when Our Lady of Guadalupe appeared again to Juan Diego, he explained the issue, like nobody believes me, and I can't just lose my time with you because my uncle is pretty sick. He went, saw his uncle, tried to go back to see the Archbishop, but just changing his route, and Our Lady appeared again. And she told him, if you gather roses and put it on your robe, it's called a tilma, you put it up, and assure you the Archbishop is going to believe you. And when Juan Diego went and saw Fray Juan de Zumárraga, he opened his tilma, let the roses fall down, and that's when the image appeared. That's the story a lot of people who are very devout of Our Lady of Guadalupe believe. Now, the story is very important to Mexican people. I had a teacher, I went to school in Mexico City, had a teacher, he was a historian, he was very atheist, but he was a Guadalupano. Because it's not just about faith, it's culture for a lot of Mexican people. But the story of Our Lady of Guadalupe is present in a lot of Mexican tradition. She became a very popular devotion in the 1600s after a miracle was adjudicated to her intercession in the early 1600s after she saved Mexico. Apparently, the city was completely ruined. After 3 weeks of rain, the city was entirely flooded. Nobody thought that they could rescue the city, and the Archbishop went for the tilma in the basilica, the temple that Our Lady requested. They took it to the cathedral. They said Mass several days on a row from the roof of this cathedral, and the water level started going down miraculously. That's when it became like a very popular devotion. And in the 1750s, with the intercession of a lot of famous painters like Miguel Cabrera, we have a couple of panels here, and A Lady of Guadalupe by Miguel Cabrera in our museum. It became a very popular painting to copy. So that's when production started happening. The painting that we have here was a painting done by a Mexican master. His name was José de Alcíbar. And it was brought here in the late 1890s by the friars from Zacatecas, from Mexico, that came here to restore the mission. The story goes that the painting that we have over there was donated to a Franciscan college in Zacatecas by a wealthy family. The college today is a museum because it had so many art treasures that when they were confiscated by the Mexican government, it's one of the most important painting collections Mexico's government possessed. But one of many treasures that the Franciscans rescued after the college was expropriated by the Mexican government in the 1800s was this painting that we have right here. It's like the foundation of the new mission that the Franciscans started rebuilding. And that painting is, I could talk about it for 3 hours, so don't make me be.
I just want to make this short. So if you go to Los Angeles today, many people have a picture of the Virgin of Guadalupe, and around her are rays of light. She is an angel appearing to this Mexican.
So it's a cultural symbol as well.
It's a cultural symbol, and it's a very traditionally, very well represented Madonna of the Apocalypse. There are several depictions of Holy Mary in Christian and Catholic faith. One of them is the Madonna of the Apocalypse, the Madonna that will come to help Jesus during the trial in the final judgment. And according to the Bible, she will come down dressed as the sun, which the rays in the back, and she will come on a cloud carried by two angels, which is why she's technically standing like that. This is an apocalypse as well. People carried by angels. That's another Madonna of the Apocalypse. The particularity about Our Lady of Guadalupe is the name, which is a combination of Arab and Spanish, and the skin tone, which made it very relatable to the new converts in Mexico, which is why it's a very popular devotion. The Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe is the second church with the most visitors and pilgrims in the entire world. The first one in Rome, in the Vatican, the second. It's not this one. The Our Lady of Guadalupe is outside. José de Alcíbar was the name of the painter. Today? Today, this section is private because we have a retreat center in the property. As I mentioned, the mission is today owned and administered by a group of Franciscan priests associated to the Franciscan province in Santa Barbara. And this is why the area of the mission is kept private. Guests of the retreat center, we bring people in guided tours. And you always have to be well identified. Everyone has a name. By this entire construction of how the mission looked like 200 years ago. If you had been here 200 years ago, you would have seen a much larger south wing at the front. According to some descriptions, the mission had 27. To other descriptions, the mission had 32 arches at the front. we're just going through their romantic style, and we're trying to rescue castles, and neo-Gothic was a thing. They said, okay, what is old in California? What is in ruins? What can we paint? Came to missions, and they painted the ruins inspiring the Chicago exposition, and from there, California mission revival became a thing.
Yeah. Google that, you guys, when you get home. A pavilion, and you'll see a mission. Julia Morgan, the most. She does.
Perfect excuse. We had 12 friars that just came from Mexico asking for Santa Barbara to help as a school. So they brought a priest called Father Jeremiah O'Keefe, who spoke Spanish. He was from Ireland and spoke Spanish. I find that very interesting. And he is considered the rebuilder of mission. And he was the one who started this big project that was rebuilding the mission. But one of his most important decisions laid in what to do with the quadrangle. This with ruins, with the pepper tree right here, cannot restore it right away. He said, we still need living quarters. We need a living place. We cannot restore everything right now. We have to wait. So he built a little quadrangle inside a much larger one. For me, stay here, so the people who are here in the shade and the people who want to go to the fountain can still hear me. There's another bench on the other side if someone wants to sit down.
Oh, by the way, Father O'Sullivan.
Okay.
He is the priest.
Okay.
The Franciscan priest who, with Charles Lummis, helped restore Mission San Capistrano. This is such a beautiful space.
This is also one of my favorite spaces of the entire mission. This and the courtyard, where that today is part of the museum.
Getting tired though because it's
Yeah.
hot, so and they're going to need to sit down for lunch or just
11:50.
Yeah.
Let me just explain very quick and how to connect this with Mission Revival. This little courtyard is basically an invention that was planned in the early 1900s when San Juan Capistrano was being rebuilt, when Balboa Park was being built as well, just in this beautiful style that we make California or Mission Revival. Where we're saying open courtyards, open colonnades. The open colonnades help airflow. When you don't have AC, you need adobe, and you need open colonnade that will allow the airflow cool down the building as well. And this little building became like the center of operations in what the mission. We have about 20 friars living here permanently. This is their home, and this is the little, today we call it the Sacred Garden because it's like the center of operation for everything at the mission. They use mostly the church here. We have a parish right next door, just like San Juan Capistrano. The parish is right next door, and some of our friars work for the parish. And we have a little private chapel inside that is used both by the friars and by the people who come and stay at the retreat center. Any other question before?
Okay, welcome everybody to the Dana Point Historic Overlook. This beautiful view was called by Richard Henry Dana the most romantic spot on the coast. In 1840, he cruised here in this ship, the Pilgrim. Take a look. He cruised by here in this brig ship called the Pilgrim. He went all the way around Cape Horn. Just imagine in this ship going around Cape Horn. He was actually from a wealthy family in New England. He started to go to Harvard, but he got ill. He decided he needed an adventure. So he went aboard the brig Pilgrim, came up the coast, and he stopped in San Diego, Dana Point, it wasn't called LA in those days, it was San Pedro and Santa Barbara. What were they after? Hides, California banknotes. So what they did is they threw the hides off the cliff, right here at this very spot, and down below was the ship, and they would roll the hides, already dried, so they could stack them like plates. They actually stayed an extra year because they got so many hides. Dana Point right here is named after Richard Henry Dana. The hides they got was from Mission San Juan Capistrano. Now, look at the headlands right here. This is an environmentally very important area. A developer came in and said, I want to build luxury homes here. His last name was Sanford, so they built Dana Strand. But the state of California said, wait a minute, you can't build a bunch of luxury homes. That's environmentally sensitive. So they did a 10-year negotiation, and they agreed to protect the headlands. Can you see the little fences there on top? Those are paths where you can walk along. Check this photo out. You can walk along the headlands. There's lots of birds and animal life, and you don't wreck the native plants. The fancy development is right on the other side. It's called, you've seen it, you've heard it, it's called the Strand. So that was the negotiation that the California Coastal Commission and the city of Dana Point, so that was the compromise they struck. There are critters there called the Pacific pocket mouse. There are actually important little critters that live in this area. Yeah, aren't they cute? So that whole area is protected. Where are the fancy homes? On the other side. Who controls development along the coast? The California Coastal Commission. Who threw hides off the cliff here? Richard Henry Dana and the Drogers. They were the sailors who threw the hides off the cliff. Now, this area is not only famous historically, this is where the pirate landed. The pirate Bouchard landed in 1840. He docked here and he attacked Mission San Juan Capistrano. But he only burned down a couple buildings and nobody got killed. So that was the pirate attack. Also, the brig Pilgrim used to be right there, but it sank. Yeah, my kids used to, it was a replica of the brig, yeah. And fourth graders would have to spend the night on the brig Pilgrim. My kid goes, Dad, I don't want to do it. Chris, you're going to swab the decks. So that's where he did it. Now, this area here, they built this beautiful marina, which is one of the most beautiful, but the surfers absolutely hated it because it used to be called Killer Dana. Look at the waves coming in. Can you see the swells? The surfers would catch the waves and they would come all the way. Look at Killer Dana before the marina. It was one of the best rides in California. And look at that. That's Killer Dana. And then they built the marina. The boaters loved it. The surfers absolutely hated it. Now, Dana Point is famous for lots of other reasons. We talked about Hobie Alter, the inventor of the Hobie Cat. He's the first surfer magazine and the first surf factory were here in Dana Point. And here's Hobie Alter. He told his dad, I never want to wear hard shoes to work, and I never want to work on the east side of Coast Highway. He lived in Laguna Beach. He also invented something very famous. His buddy Clark invented the foam that made surfboards lighter. And that launched the surf industry. So Hobie Alter, and by the way, the Hobie shop is right there. And one of my friends married Hobie Alter's daughter. His name is Mark Christie. And they opened up the Hobie shops. Have you heard of the resort called the Ranch in Laguna? That is owned by Mark Christie, who married into Hobie Alter's family. But I think Hobie Alter is a superhero. He made sailing popular for the masses. Yeah. Okay, next part of the story. And I'm surfing, that's right. Okay, So think about this beautiful plateau, nothing built on here, beautiful climate. Along comes Mr. Hollywood. Sidney Woodruff, he built Hollywood Land. There's the Hollywood Land sign. See it, everybody? So he came down to Dana Point and he bought the land and he started to build. And he had big plans. He was going to build everything with Spanish colonial architecture, and everything was going great with beautiful tiles, and they decided to do the fancy lanterns that we discussed. And then he was going to build a hotel, the Dana Point Resort Hotel. And the Dana Point Resort Hotel, Dorothy and Carmen and I have seen it. The foundation is on the cliff. What happened in 1929? The Great Depression. Sidney Woodruff had to abandon his plans. So the hotel never got built. They only built about 47 homes. So the Depression killed the plan. Does Dana Point still have a few historic homes? Yes, about 40 of them. No, 40. He built 40. Yeah. Also, in the 1920s, this was a very scenic place to have a picnic. Look at this cliff. It was called the Scenic Inn. Right here, right down here to the left. No, it's not there anymore. And now Baby Beach is a great place to learn. Look at the paddleboard. It's the great place to learn how to paddleboard, but it's the most polluted water around. It's very polluted. We also have the Ocean Institute right there, and they take people out in boats to educate them about the ocean and ocean safety. Yeah, see the Ocean Institute right there? You can have a wedding. Look at these waves coming in. Watch the wave hit the breakwater. See that? Those are big waves. Look at that. You would catch the wave right there, and it would be, believe it or not, about a 1.5-minute ride. Okay, there's one more part of the story that's kind of interesting. Have you guys heard of Edward Doheny? Edward Doheny was an oil tycoon. He struck it rich discovering oil in California, also in Mexico. So he became very wealthy, but he was implicated in something called the Teapot Dome scandal. A $100,000 bribe was given to him that he gave supposedly to the Secretary of the Interior. He was never found guilty, but his son, Ned, was supposed to testify. Before Ned testified, he built another resort. Look at this. That resort was right down in Capistrano Beach. It was called the Capistrano Beach Club. See this, everybody? This was built by Ned Doheny, Spanish colonial, right down the coast. And his dad built a beautiful mansion in Capistrano Beach. Sadly, guess what happened? Before Ned was to testify, he and his partner were found dead in the Greystone Mansion in Beverly Hills. They don't know if one of them killed each other or it was a murder-suicide. But the Doheny family was grieving so much, they donated the land for Doheny State Park. That's why it's called Doheny State Park, because Ned Doheny built the beach club, and his dad, after his death, donated the land. So I think you'd agree that Dana Point, for a little town, has a lot of history. Here's the Capistrano Beach Club.
Was there any decision about how they died?
They never determined it.
It was just the two of them.
And here's the Doheny Mansion in Capistrano Beach. So it's still there. Yeah, the Doheny Mansion is still there. There's also one in LA County. So I think you'd agree that Dana Point really did a good job. Meanwhile, in Huntington Beach, they were drilling for oil. Look at all the oil wells on Huntington Beach. Oil was discovered in the 1920s in Huntington Beach. It's still there. Some of the oil derricks are still there. And here is Mr. Sidney Woodruff selling plots of land with his Hollywood sign, getting people to buy in Dana Point. Unfortunately, the Depression hit and they had to abandon their plans. So that's the history of this wonderful place. So on our way to wine, we're going to take a look at some of the historic buildings and some of the lanterns. So I hope you guys enjoyed that introduction. So you've got Richard Henry Dana, thank you.
Richard Henry Dana, Hobie Alter, Ned Doheny, and Sidney Woodruff. You got some pretty famous people in this town. So let's go check it out. We're going to get back on the bus and because we got to drink some wine. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, welcome everybody. As Bill said, my name's Randy Fisher. This is my wife Susie over here. We are the owners of Five Vines Wine Bar. Five Vines, if you've not been here before, it's my wife and I and our three boys make up the Five Vines. So we're a small family-owned business. We carry a whole variety of wines, over 65 wines. We like to support the small winemakers, primarily family-owned wineries from the West Coast. So most of the wines that we carry are wines you're not going to find in a grocery store anywhere. They're really small production. Like the wines you find in a grocery store, about 100,000 case production per year. The wines that we carry are hundreds of cases. So really small, very boutique style wines. What we're doing today, oh wait, you go next. Huh? So family, she does the family part. This is a tag team here.
I thought he skipped that part.
No.
Our three boys, we have a 31-year-old that is married and we're grandparents.
Woo!
We have a 29-year-old who is owner and manager here with us, and then we have a 19-year-old who does all the serving and everything. So we are full-on family-owned and operated, which really doesn't exist anymore in life. Unfortunately, we made it through COVID, so that's all good. And
yeah, we've been here nearly 10 years now. So through the ups and downs, happy to still be here.
And enjoy.
Yes.
He's going to tell you about the wine.
So the first wine you're tasting, you'll notice on your tables, you guys all have the wines that we'll be tasting today, but give you a little more flavor and understanding of what the wines are. The first wine is out of the Loire Valley in France. Has anybody been to France before tasting wine? Thank you. Then you may be familiar with the Loire Valley. Of all the regions of France, it is the largest winemaking region in all of France. Has some good diversity to it, although the primary wine that most people know from the Loire Valley is a wine called Sancerre. Sancerre is basically a Sauvignon Blanc. So in France, everything is named by region, not by grape. So that's this wine here. This wine is called Muscadet, or in France, Muscadet. Some people kind of confuse it for like Muscat. It is not Muscat. So Muscadet region, they grow a grape called Melon de Bourgogne. My French is horrible, but that's what it loosely translated. That's one of the only regions in all of France where they grow that particular grape, and that is the only grape that can be in this wine. This is, like I said earlier, not at all like Muscat. Muscat's a real fruity, sweet wine. This is light. It's a delicate, kind of citrusy, bright acidity, a real good food wine. The Loire Valley is known for having incredible food, and their wines are all meant to go with the food they make in the region. So this particular wine, light, fresh, a good start to your tasting. When you guys have finished this, when you are ready for your next wine, since we're going to let this be leisurely, you can walk up to the bar. I'll pour you the next wine and tell you all about it. You can read a little bit on there, but like I said, I'll give you all the details when you guys are ready. No rush. Enjoy yourself. Eat a little cheese, and we'll have a good day. Thank you, guys.
Downtown San Juan Capistrano is really booming. More and more restaurants. The Mission is only 1 block away. This is the upstairs tasting area for Five Vines. And then next door we have Rancho Capistrano Winery. And then next door we have the Depot. So we have 3 restaurants next door. So I think San Juan Capistrano is probably the most fun town in Orange County now. I would say Orange, where the Circle is, and San Juan Capistrano. And Heritage Barbecue across the street won the best restaurant in Orange County. Cheers.
and Susie, real quickly, this is Carmen from the Chicago Club. Susie and Randy are owners of Five Vines, and it's such a popular wine destination. And thank you very much for hosting us.
Thank you.
Yes.
You chose to come here.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Very good. Yep. So we're going to drink a white and a couple of reds.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
right.
We're going to do a little progressive tasting, light wines to heavy wines. Going to talk about them as we go.
Good. All right.
Yep.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Okay. I proposed to my wife at the depot. I had the rehearsal dinner at El Adobe restaurant, and I got married at the Mission. They no longer allow you to get married at the Mission, only if you're an Ahachiman native, which I'm not. So you have to get married in the Basilica. We good, Dave?
We're good.
Okay, Jerry, let's go. I hope you guys enjoyed Five Vines. Wasn't that delightful? They run a wonderful business.
Amazing.
Really good wines. I love the upstairs area there. Yeah, very good. And did anybody buy a bottle? Oh, good job. That's great. So that was a nice way to end the tour. I think we should end all the tours with alcohol. Okay, there's Los Rios Historic District, the oldest continuously lived in neighborhood in California. That's where the Franciscan missionaries allowed the natives to build adobes along the river Los Rios. Everybody, here's Mission San Juan Capistrano, the seventh of the missions, and we'll get a good view of the old stone church. Sadly, an earthquake tumbled it in 1812, and 40 neophytes died. But that structure was just as large as the church at San Luis Rey.
I'm sure.
You could stay there, go over to Five Vines, have a wine tasting, then go have Mexican food at El Adobe, or the new restaurant Mayfield. Or you could go to Heritage Barbecue, the #1 restaurant in Orange County. And if you look at, even the Del Taco looks like a mission. Look at red tile roof there, only in San Juan. And notice the hills, San Juan does not allow building on the ridge lines.
But better yet, we'd rather see you in person, us at Clubhouse 5. And better yet, we would love to have you become a member. Check our website for all the details of the great shows, the great trips. Bye-bye. See you next time.